Taehyung's POV. I came out of the bathroom after washing my face to sober up a little and heard tiny noises coming from the living area. I went to check, and here we have our little monster desperately trying to escape. How adorable. I was watching her every panic move from the upstairs. From a distance, I noticed her hand quivering, which I found appealing. Ah, what would it feel like if she trembles under me? Let's find out. I moved down the steps quietly and stood behind her. Whispered in tension as she twisted the pin within the keyhole with her one hand. Come on, let me open you. It's difficult. Need any help, officer? She flinched a little and froze in her place, making me smirk in victory. Looks like I have caught you. Now, you are under arrest, officer. Leaned in and whispered in her ear from behind. It was pin drop silence in the room, and I could hear her gulping in fear. But as she loves to be the unpredictable one, her next move made me take a step back. He turned around swiftly and pointed out at me. I immediately surrendered as always by raising my hands. I closely looked at the gun. Hey, that's my gun, you cheater. Gave her a mad pout. She did not reply. Instead, she loaded the while still pointing it at me. For the reference, she stole it when Taehyung opened her handcuff as he was just pretending to sleep. Thief? Just so as you know, such a felony can land you in jail. Spoke with hands up. Step back or I'll shoot. Gestured him with gun to move back. Do it, but be sure to target my heart. As always. Pointed at his heart. Vine fearlessly pulled the trigger without thinking twice. Ouch. This gun should have the bullet, because your lack of hesitancy while pressing the trigger hurt. Acted offended. Van was shocked as the was empty, but she still refused to back down. Taehyung tried to grab her wrist, but she quickly dodged and delivered a front kick to his stomach, which he successfully blocked with his hand. Van gawked at him while clenching her jaws and fist. Meanwhile, Taehyung remained calm and gave her a smirk, which worked like salt to her injuries. She threw another blow at him, but he leaned back and barely avoided it by a centimeter. Van became extremely outraged, and he took advantage of the situation, as when anger plays, victory often stays away. He kicked her knee, causing her to bend down and fall limp for a moment. She closed her eyes to cope with the pain, and upon opening them, she found his face near hers, as he was crunching down on her level and looking at her face apologetically. She glared at him. What? Gave her a sorrowful mocking expression. You thought I won't hit you back because you're a woman? Nah, I only spare weakly. And moreover, that's my way of supporting women empowerment. Slightly raised his fist of motivation and nodded his head encouragingly. Van just punched him straight on the nose, and her one punch made a Niagara fall off, gushing down from his nose and mouth. He stumbled back while groaning loudly and holding his nose tightly. His eyes watered due to the intensity of pain. Ryan remained kneeling on the floor, with her head hung low, and her eyes closed because her knee was also not cooperating at all, and it hurt like hell. Tang removed his hand from his nose and saw. He glared at her, but his eyes softened upon witnessing her condition, and to a cherry on top, his gaze landed on her extra swollen hand, which she fractured to get out of her handcuff. I reserved, spoke while looking at the on his hands. He approached her again, but this time she gathered all her strength, stood up with a jerk, and tried to punch him again. But he gripped her punch tightly and twisted her arm behind her back. Now her back was touching his toned chest. He twisted her arm a little hard, making her let out a gasp of pain, as this was her fractured hand. He dug in her back as a silent warning, making her to arch her back a little to avoid contact. Suck up your lost buttercup. She struggled to free herself, but he twisted her arm even harder, forcing her to close her eyes and press her head against his chest to help alleviate the pain. Let out a deep chuckle in her ear, giving her instant goosebumps. I'm enjoying it more than I should, which is not a good news for you, whispered in her ear and bit her earlobe. Ending his line with a kiss on her earlobe, he threw her on the couch, handcuffed her wrists together once again. By the way, it was the same handcuff he opened not so long ago, swayed her around like a lifeless doll, and lifted her on his shoulder. He did it all so quickly that she felt dizzy. However, she tried to kick her legs in the air when he started walking upstairs towards his room. He entered the bathroom and placed her in an empty bathtub. Before she could do something, he quickly changed her wrist and leg with the bathtub handles. It was easier to handle her as she was already injured. When she noticed all the change in the bathroom, she scoffed and gave him a disgusted look. I'm a spicy man. Smirks and bit his lower lip while gazing her up and down. These chains are here in case my wildness get out of control. Did I ask? Finally opened her mouth. Well, couples should know each other before marriage. And you should know your limits. The cold metal came in contact with her lips, making her break to a hitch. Tang had pressed the muzzle of his on her lips to silence her. He withdrew his back, followed by the airy touch of his chilly chuckle hitting her nose due to their proximity. He lifted his to brush her freely falling hair behind her ear. She rolled her eyes and jerked her head to the other side with a disturbed expression on her face, but he did not stop. He tilted her head to face him by harshly pressing on her jaw. Roll your eyes once again and I'll take you right there in this bathtub. Romantic, right? Stay away from me, you drunk. Coldly yet calmly cursed him. Still sober enough to put you in your place. Intensely stared in her eyes. I'm going out of here, that's for sure. Just wait and watch. Spoke with a spark of determination in her eyes. And who will save you? Your police department. Leaned in and get dangerously close to her. This world is a effed up place, and these people are responsible. They ask you to fight against the crime and then label you as a criminal for having blood on your hands. Leaned back and wiped his still bleeding nose with the back of his hand. Gave him a confused stare as she knew his words had a hidden meaning behind. What do you mean? Your honorable department has released all the criminals you caught in that club during raid. They also filed case on your name for innocent people in that club. They have accused you of dishonesty and linked you to the Mafia. And remember when I ended your chief inspector? Yes. Now the FIR is in your name. They say you ended him. Told her everything with a lovely grin as if he's telling her good news. She fell silent and tried to process his words. It was hard to believe. She worked so hard against the crime, and in the end, they labeled her as a criminal. You are lying. Sure, if this helps you sleep at night. Shrugged his shoulders. I don't believe you. Your loss? Shook his head nonchalantly. Reality is often disappointing, man. This brainwashing won't work on me. Okay then, my love will. Don't act like you know what being good is like. Spoke frustratingly. I used to be. However, that wasn't reassuring. Coldly replied while staring into the space aimlessly. Taehyung shook his head to come out of his thoughts as he felt himself getting lost in his world of darkness. And one thing to always remember, no matter what happens, you will always find yourself bound to me. You can't escape from me. Then I will end you. I know. Glanced at her for a second before shifting the direction of his gaze. After a brief moment of silence, he spoke again. I know you are not interested, but let me tell you something about myself. I have a puppy, Jeon. He is very small and dear to me. And my best friend, Jimin. He is my soulmate. His mother also treats me like her own son, and she makes the tastiest pancake. Took a pendant out of his pocket and showed her. This pendant. This is the last memory of my late grandmother, whom I loved a lot. You can say that Jimin, his mother, Jeon, and this pendant are my only possessions in this world, and I would die or kill for them. Wan frowned upon thinking that why is he telling her all these things? Is he wasting her time or is he out of his mind? And these chains are not here for any nasty stuff. These chains are for Yanta. He hates taking baths, so I have to shackle him in order to clean him. Tang laughed upon seeing her embarrassed expression. He ruffled her hairs while she kept giving him a strange look. Why the hell are you telling me all of this? Would you end a guy who has a little innocent dog waiting for him? Would you end a guy who has no one in this world but a best friend and his mother? Would you end a guy whose simplicity allows him to love pancakes? Would you really be able to press the trigger on a guy who is living with the memories of his grandma? You are not that cruel, Mayan. Smiled at her and shook his head. Her thoughts warned her that he was manipulating her, brainwashing her. He is not that innocent. She should not get trapped by his honey words. What if one day you wake up and find out that you have nothing you love besides you? Your innocent puppy does not bark excitedly at you when you arrive. Your best friend is gone, and you can't eat your favorite pancakes because his mother is also missing. Someone has stolen your grandma's pendant, and the reason behind your misery is a girl named Mai, the same girl you sort of fell for. What will you do, Taehyung? In which wall would you like to bang your head? Gave him a fake worried expression and warningly mocked him. Her words told him that she is a strong-headed girl who is not the one to be manipulated, and he silently kept staring in her eyes, intensely. Huh? Demanded an answer while raising her eyebrow. Say it again, whispered coldly. What? Smirked as she thought she had successfully planted a seed of fear in his heart. My name. Say it again. It sounds so different from your mouth. So beautiful. Smirks naughtily. So sexy. Her smirk vanished as she found herself getting frustrated due to his behavior. He clearly knows how to play and win. He laughed on her expression, but someone directly entered the bathroom, making him glare at the entrance door darkly. What a scene. Mouth wide open upon seeing wine chained up in a bathtub and Taehyung sitting on its edge. There's a door to knock. What if I was naked? It's not like I have never seen you naked, scoffed as he placed his hands on the sides of his hips, pretending to be offended. They ignored her existence while arguing and embarrassed each other, making her eyes to grow a little wide in disbelief. No, it's not what you think. For God's sake, this woman has the dirtiest mind to ever exist. Wind while looking at her. Come on, Thai, we used to share the same underwear. Thanks I'd being done with this shit, making Jimin laugh in victory. Tell me, what brought you here? Looks around the bathroom. Sat on the closed commode seat and began speaking as if they were having a private meeting. First, Lee has invited you to his private party. Second, Leo has bought a girl for himself. I'd whine for a moment who was clenching her jaws in anger. Tang sighed while cursing under his breath. Where is he? Voice went deep, and I showed nothing but darkness within his soul. Don't know, but he will attend the party, as he has also been invited. Accept the invitation. Jimin nodded his head and exited the bathroom, leaving a blank male and female behind. They were both buried in thoughts until Taehyung got up. Van snapped out of her daze and noticed his hand approaching the shower faucet. He was about to turn the shower on. Yeah, don't you dare. Yeah! He turned the shower on. She soon felt herself being soaked in water. She desperately wiggled in her place to get out, but he laughed at her face as her attempts were failing miserably. However, his smile faded when he saw her face scrunch due to pain. He looked at her knee and then swollen hand. He turned off the shower, but the bathtub was already filled with water. I thought to give you a shower, as I can't take a stinky girlfriend in the party tomorrow. She glared at him But he looked away from her as his cheeks grew pink upon seeing her undershirt visible due to getting wet by the water. He glanced at her again, and this time he felt smoke coming out of his ears, as her hotness was too much for him to handle. Her damp hair and red wet lips tested his patience. His eyes unintentionally followed a water droplet that fell from her eyelash and slowly traveled down her neck into her. Never seen an exposed girl? I bet you have seen more than your ancestors could count. Indicated that he probably has with many girls. He pushed his hairs back in frustration, sighed loudly in irritation, and leaned in, causing her to lean back, as she was afraid if she did not, then he would do something forbidden. This is not so cheap. Shocking her with his bold yet daring declaration, he left the bathroom, and for the first time in her life, she felt herself getting caught off guard.